After studying the entire Bible and receiving the tradition that was transmitted from Moses at Mount Sinai, Maimonides, a chief codifier of Noahide law, writes this in the Laws of Kings and Wars chapter 8. Anyone who accepts upon himself the observance of these 7 commandments and is precise in their observance is considered one of the pious among the nations and will merit a share in the world to come. This applies only when he accepts them and fulfills them because the Holy One, blessed be He, commanded them in the Torah and informed us through Moses, our teacher, that Noah's descendants had been commanded to fulfill them previously. However, if he fulfills them out of intellectual conviction, he is not a resident alien, nor of the pious among the nations, nor of their wise men. So according to Maimonides and the oral tradition, a non-Jew who accepts and fulfills the 7 Noahide commandments because God commanded them through Moses at Mount Sinai is considered pious and will receive a share in the world to come. We'll discuss more about what this world to come is, but it's essentially an afterlife with God. But one who keeps these 7 Noahide laws out of some other reason, maybe it's their intellectual conviction or because they think they're good laws, does not have the same status in terms of eternal reward in the world to come. Now, some have suggested that these people who follow the laws just out of their intellectual conviction are called wise, but based on the standard interpretation and plain reading of what Maimonides says, even these people aren't considered wise unless they keep the laws because they were given in the Torah. In this video, we'll dissect why these pious, righteous Noahides merit a share in the world to come versus the wise Noahides. Why should keeping them because God commanded them to Moses at Mount Sinai matter? Why does it matter if I don't murder because God commanded it to Moses at Mount Sinai? How is that any different than if I just didn't choose to murder? Now, in the last video, we covered 2 philosophical, psychological reasons why someone is greater if they perform a command because God commanded it versus if they perform that same action for some other reason. In this video, though, we're getting into more of the theological implications. But before we start, it's important to remember, God is perfectly just. Every human being, whether or not they believe in God, is judged fairly based on their actions. Good deeds are rewarded and wrongdoing has consequences, either in this world or the next world. And this is all depending on God's perfect wisdom. God is the ultimate judge, He knows everything, and He's the pinnacle of fairness. But in addition to the strict, fair justice, God grants a special kindness to those who recognize Him and commit themselves to His will. This special kindness is called the world to come, a spiritual closeness to God for eternity. So, why do righteous Noahides receive a share in this world to come, while wise Noahides may not? Again, we must remember what the world to come entails. The world to come is eternal closeness to God. Do you want eternal closeness to God? If you've never sought to know God, if you don't care about God, if in fact you want to rebel against whoever created you, then maybe you don't want eternal closeness to God. Maybe this is not appealing to you. And similarly, many people do not want this eternal closeness to God. However, typically for someone who has devoted their life to serving God, seeking God, living in connection with Him, this eternal closeness to God is the highest joy. These people are the righteous Noahides. But for someone who has lived without that relationship, like a wise Noahide, eternal closeness to God may not be meaningful or even desirable. A good analogy for the world to come is like a classical music concert. A classical music enthusiast finds great joy in the complexities of the music, the harmony with which all the instruments synchronize, the rhythm. They will appreciate a classical music concert way more than someone who's never developed an ear for it, or maybe someone who prefers rap. In fact, this person may find the concert boring, maybe even uncomfortable, torturous. But notice, it's the same concert. The difference is only in the listener's preparedness to appreciate the concert. Remember, boredom is a type of pain. That person who prefers rap, who doesn't care for classical, may hate to be at this concert. But the righteous Noahide, the one who loves classical music, will love this concert. So again, righteous Noahides follow the commandments because God commanded them. These people want to serve God, and they want to build a relationship with God. Because they built that connection in this life, God continues that connection with them in the next life, which deepens this connection forever. Wise Noahides, on the other hand, may keep these laws based on reason, or philosophy, or fear, and they may be ethical. But unlike the righteous Noahides, they don't necessarily want to be with God. They don't want to establish a relationship with God. It's like being invited to a date with someone you don't know or care about. It's not inherently joyful if there's no relationship there. God's invitation, though, to the world to come is open to all. The righteous who want to serve God accept that invitation now. But there's more than just appreciating closeness to God. Yeah, the righteous Noahides will appreciate the world to come, and the wise Noahides may not even want it. But we've been saying that doing the commandments because God commanded them builds a relationship. How is this? How do these commandments build a relationship with God? When you do God's will because it is God's will, you are indeed attaching yourself to God. You are forming a personal connection to Him. It's like responding to a request from someone you love. You do it not because you agree with it or because you were going to do it anyway, but you do it because the person you love asked you to do it. If you respond to that same request for some other reason, you aren't building a relationship with God. Let's take this example. Let's say your mom tells you that she would really love it if you could go to the store for her and get her some steak and fruit. Doesn't need to happen now, just maybe later today. You hear your mom, you think, okay, yeah, maybe I'll get around to doing that. We will see. Time passes. Later, you actually get hungry and you open the fridge, there's nothing in it. So you go to the store, oh, you see some steak and fruit. Those look appetizing. You buy those, maybe some extra in case you get hungry again, and then you go back home and enjoy. Later that day, your mom comes home from work, she opens up the fridge, and she sees the steak and fruit. Exactly what she asked for. She's so happy and pleased that she now has what she wanted. She goes and expresses her thankfulness for you. But you can't help being honest. You say, Mom, I'm not going to lie to you. I got that steak and fruit because I was hungry and wanted steak and fruit. I didn't necessarily get them for you, but you're happy to enjoy. I got extra. Notice what happened here. If you had gotten the steak and fruit because your mom asked you to do it, the relationship between you and your mom would have been enhanced. Your mom would have shown gratitude to you. You performed her a favor. Your relationship grows. However, since you did that same action, but not because your mom wanted you to, your mom doesn't owe you any gratitude. In fact, she may even be insulted that you did it only because you wanted to do it and not because she wanted you to do it. It's similar with God. If you do good things because they seem good to you, you're not doing those things for God. You're doing those things for yourself. And while those actions may be good and will receive merit, you're not building in your relationship with God. But when you do something because God commanded you to do it, the act becomes a service to God. And that's what creates that relationship and builds upon it, which leads to the next point. Reward and punishment beyond strict justice can really only happen if God commands. If God didn't command you to do something, even if your actions align with God's will, if you do that, He doesn't then owe you anything since you did it for your own sake. God doesn't owe you anything beyond just strict justice. God can't thank you for anything because He didn't ask you for anything. If, however, He commands you and asks you to do certain things, and you do them because God asked you to do them, now you've done something for God. You've honored His will. You've served Him. And just like your mom would have shown gratitude to you if you got the steak and fruit because she wanted you to, God also responds with love, kindness, and reward beyond that which is strictly deserved. God can now thank you with the world to come. And so this is why it's so important that God commanded the Noahide laws, and why we do them because God commanded them. If God's will is what matters to you, then God also likely matters to you. And if God matters to you, then eternity with God also likely matters to you. And God acknowledges this and grants you this benefit. So we've established why following the commands because God commanded them forms this relationship. And then God, out of His love and kindness, grants you further reward to extend this relationship beyond just this life. But why does following them because God commanded them to Moses at Mount Sinai in front of the entire Jewish nation matter? Why isn't following just because God said so enough? Well, how do you know that God said so? Many people have claimed to receive messages from God, but their messages often contradict each other. For example, in the Christian New Testament, Paul teaches that all foods are permitted. In contrast, Muhammad in the Quran forbids certain foods, like pork. Both claim to represent God's will, but they directly contradict each other. So how do you know what God actually wants? And that's where the revelation of Mount Sinai is completely different and unique. The revelation at Mount Sinai wasn't just a private experience to one or two people. It was a national revelation in front of 2 million people. This gives it a level of credibility and authority that no other revelation claims. And it gives it a level of credibility that is very difficult to refute. Now, it's true the 7 laws were given before Mount Sinai, but they were reaffirmed and commanded again through Moses at Mount Sinai, which then gives them this binding eternal validity. One who follows them because God commanded them to Moses Mount Sinai is not following them just because they feel right. They're following them because it's what God actually wants. It's highly reasonable to suspect that this revelation is true, and this truth matters in a relationship to God. For example, imagine a son who wants to show his love to his mother. He remembers that her birthday is coming up. Now, last week, his mom told him what she wanted. She just wants her son to spend the day with her. That's all she wants. A week passes, the birthday's coming up. The son instead decides, you know what will make my mom happiest? I think she'll want a beautiful handbag. So instead of spending the whole day with her, he orders the handbag and sends her a nice note. Yeah, that's what she'll really want. When she receives the gift, she appreciates the thought, but she's a little disappointed. She told him exactly what she wanted, and he ended up ignoring it, even though he meant well. So the relationship hasn't really, truly grown. The son obviously doesn't care or know about his mom's will, even though she made it very clear. So his knowledge of his mom is based off of false premises, which undermines the relationship. I mean, think about a relationship that you have with your friend. You're not going to have a good relationship if you don't think that your friend understands you. In fact, the best relationships are when you both understand each other very, very well. Now, God obviously understands you, but do you understand God? And so the revelation at Mount Sinai is a crucial point because it reflects God's true will. It's not based off of false premises. Even if you try to honor God based off of what you think He wants, you're not doing what He actually revealed that He wants. So to build the proper relationship with Him is to do what He actually wants. And what He actually wants was revealed at Mount Sinai. Now there's one more crucial note about following them because God commanded them at Mount Sinai. Sure, you can follow the 7 laws, but the Torah outlines exactly how to follow the 7 laws. Only the Torah outlines the full content of the 7 laws, the details of them, that make your observance even better in the eyes of God. You're doing exactly what He wants, not only kind of what He wants. A basic general example of this is that one of the Noahide laws is do not murder. Okay, but what counts as murder? Does abortion count as murder? Does self-defense count as murder? What about euthanasia? The Torah specifies exactly what counts as murder. Thus, by following the Torah, you're doing exactly what God wants, down to the tiniest detail, which builds that relationship better than if you were just to follow the 7 laws. So, when a Noahide observes these 7 laws because they were given to God through Moses at Mount Sinai, he follows the 7 laws through how they're defined in the Torah. He thus accepts the Torah's authority. His observance becomes more precise, more meaningful, and thus more pleasing to God. So to close, God judges all people with perfect justice. Everyone will receive reward for their good deeds, either now or in the future. But eternal life with God, the world to come, is more than just justice. It's a continuation of a relationship that began in this life. Righteous Noahides accept the 7 Noahide laws because God gave them to Moses at Mount Sinai. They thus want to do God's will, want to build a relationship with God, want to serve God, and that relationship is what continues forever. If eternity with God is what you want, I strongly encourage you to become a righteous Noahide. Do what God commanded you to do, and do exactly what He commanded you to do in the Torah. Remember, eternity with God is open for all. Anyways, I hope this made sense. I hope you learned something. Thank you always for watching.